howdy, everyone. Welcome to Tilson Live. I'm your host, Eric Allered, part of the fourth generation of the Tilson family, joined as I am every single week by everything great about marketing at Tilson Homes, Vice President of Marketing and Customer Experience for us, Mrs. Dawn Dantzler. How are you, Dawn?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm extra excited today because I have a very dear friend of mine that's joining us. And so we're going to introduce him in just a second. We have a very special guest today that's going to give y'all some incredible insight. But before I do that, as always, y'all drop in the comments where you're watching from. Tell us where you're watching from. Tell us where you're building. Tell us what part of the process that you're in. We know we have some of our usual guests, so we want to hear from you guys. Drop all of your questions in. Obviously, we have a very particular subject matter we want to deal with today, but we are here to answer all your questions about building on your land. If you got financing questions, if you got site preparation questions. But today we have a very special guest, and we're going to talk about all things supply chain and inventory, and the guy that's going to fix it all globally is with us here today. And his name is
Waylon. I forgot to tell you, Eric makes promises that are just crazy.
Yeah, of course.
On behalf of others.
Yeah. So we are joined by Waylon Walker, Senior Vice President of Operations and Merchandising for McCoy's Building Supply. So welcome, Waylon. How are you, sir?
Doing well. Excited to be here. Thank you.
Man, I'm so grateful that you're joining us. You're a friend and you are a mentor of mine, and I'm grateful that we're in this industry together and that you agreed to come on this show with us and give this insight. So a few things first, then we'll let Waylon do some introduction stuff. But again, keep dropping your comments about where you're building from, where you're watching, and what part you're in. So we're celebrating our 90th anniversary this year, which y'all were a big part of course. But if my math is right, that means y'all are at 95 years. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Well,
wow.
Congratulations to the McCoy's family and to you guys for 95 years. Our much bigger brothers in the industry. So, Dawn, we got anybody joining us yet? Tell us when folks are doing stuff, and then I'll have Waylon do some introduction.
Yep. Coming in from YouTube, we've got somebody building in Canyon C in Grayson County. They just finished the design process and stakeout. So awesome. It's exciting.
I think that is Linda.
And I think she's actually watching on Facebook too. So she's double dipping.
Linda has us in stereo.
It's Linda.
She has us in surround sound.
She is making sure that she is seeing this. She's very excited. We got Will coming in from Klondike. Hey, Will.
Welcome, Will.
We got this stranger, Edward Martin. Anybody ever heard of him? Yeah.
Yep,
thank you, Waylon, for being on Tilson Live from Eddie.
Agreed.
And Linda is watching from Frisco.
Wonderful.
We've got Nikki, who is waiting on windows that were supposed to ship on the 25th, but no ETA due to supply issues. Is that a thing, Waylon?
We're going to talk about that a little bit.
That is a thing, unfortunately.
All right. And then we got Julie, who cheated on us last week because Johnny Tapp. I hear we're on verdict watch.
Hey, we take confessions here on Tilson Live. We absolutely will.
I think we answered questions about the trial last week.
We did. We talked about the trial briefly last week. That's when, Waylon, we made the mistake of saying, ask us anything.
Ask us anything, so they did. Yeah.
Be very careful about that in the future. We did not put that on the title today for you.
But she's building a Whitney D in Bowie and meets their builder in 3 weeks.
Love Bowie, Texas.
Yeah, and Eric, I can't help on the supply chain for toilet paper and baby formula and other things. Okay.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
All right, we got Amber, who is watching from Florence, Texas, building an Angelina C in Hamilton County.
Beautiful.
We've got Wesley Bass family, building in Greenville Canyon, hoping to have flooring and garage door and appliances in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Awesome. Love Greenville, Texas.
We got Carolyn. The new home specialist team is listening along as usual.
Yep, and Carolyn was with us yesterday at the McCoy's headquarters there in San Marcos doing some training. So thank you, Carolyn. All right, Mr. Walker. So today you are Senior Vice President of Operations and Merchandising, but I'm guessing that's not how you got started. So tell us a little bit about where you're from, your path with the McCoy Building Supply, the McCoy's family, and we'll go from there with a couple of questions. So go ahead, sir.
Well, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm from a small town just north of Corpus Christi, Texas, called Sinton, Texas. When I grew up, it was about a 5,000 population town. We were pretty solid. baseball and football town. So that was fun to be part of, at least on the football side. I did not play baseball, but I wish I did. But anyway, I started with McCoy's in 1992 in our management training program, about halfway through college. Was married, had 2 children at home, and ready to go to work. Became an assistant manager. I'll move real fast through this because there's quite a few of these moves. In Russellville, Arkansas was my first store. Then I moved to Okmulgee, Oklahoma, then to Waco, Texas, then to San Marcos, Texas. Worked at our headquarters a little bit before moving back to our store. That was a training opportunity. And then made my first store manager position in Mount Pleasant, Texas. Then I managed our Cedar Park location. Then Georgetown, and then back to North Corpus Christi, where I started. Did that for about 4.5 years, and then became a regional manager for East Texas and Mississippi for about 9 years. Then became vice president of operations and oversaw all of our store operations and regional manager team. And then was promoted about 4 years ago to senior vice president. And also I have direct oversight of the merchandising procurement side, manufacturing and distribution, and then also have oversight over our store operations as well. Wow. In conjunction with Ron Van Winkle, our VP of Ops. So I'll be 30 years with the company in September. So we jammed a lot of that in a fairly short
in about a minute and a half. That's pretty impressive. Well, congratulations. That's unbelievable. You touched on a number of things that I do want to touch on. You kind of subtly mentioned manufacturing. There's a lot of folks that maybe on here don't know this, but McCoy's does make a lot of its own millwork.
Yes. So
tell us a little bit about that.
You bet you. In addition to the 90 retail stores that we operate, we have 2. We call them manufacturing, but they're real door assembly locations. We have one in New Braunfels. It's 104,000 square feet, and one in the Rio Grande Valley. Altogether, last year we assembled about 270,000 door units in 2021. So it's a pretty good operation. We also have 3 distribution centers that feed those 90 locations some basic commodities. One's in the Burnett, just northwest of Austin, one in Farr in the Rio Grande Valley, and one in Midland.
Okay, and so McCoy's has obviously a bigger footprint than Tilson Homes. So y'all are a fourth generation family owned and operated company. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yep. And so we got some synergies going on there. But folks, obviously, just given his resume he just read to you, there's not a corner of Texas that we're building that Waylon hasn't served some time in for the McCoy's organization. So if you got questions about building somewhere, there's a very good chance that Waylon has spent some time there, or at least passed through. So do ask questions about any kind of supply chain questions that you might have. We're going to have a few. So tell us a little bit about the history of McCoy's, the culture. You mentioned 90 plus locations, and tell us a little bit about, because y'all have a very unique culture, actually.
Absolutely. We're really proud of that. And we think that's one of the things that sets us apart for a lot of the other companies out there selling building materials. We actually started in 1927 as a roofing company. Frank McCoy started the company then and continued that. Emmett McCoy, his son, joined him in the mid-40s, coming back from that crazy time that we were all in, or they were in. I wasn't around at that time. And in 1950, Frank retired and Emmett became CEO. In 53, he started selling building materials in addition to opened the second location. That was all in Galveston, by the way. Second location was opened in Lamarck in 1960. And then Hurricane Carla happened in 1961. And, one of the things that really happened that gave McCoy's a great name is historically, after a storm and devastation, people would price gouge. And, Emmett was very firm in his pricing. He did not change prices at all, and wanted to make sure everyone was receiving a fair price to rebuild their lives. And that went a long way. In 1964, the roofing business was discontinued, and they actually added lumber to the mix. We were selling just plywood and some doors and windows and drywall at that time. I'm going to fast forward a few things. In 1972, the headquarters was moved from Galveston to San Marcos. In 1980, we had 25 stores with about $100 million in sales. And in 10 years, we went from 25 to 95 stores. So it's incredible growth during that time. And 1997, Emmett retired, and the business was taken over by Brian McCoy, Mike McCoy, his brother, and Brenda Remy. And then in 2001, we were going through some really tumultuous times, in the industry, trying to figure out, what McCoy's future looked like. And Brian and his family actually purchased the business from Mike and Brenda and their families. So I'm going to fast forward. We've done a lot of things there. I want to speak about one really special thing that's happening today.
Yeah, today.
That is, today is Brian McCoy's last day as CEO of our company. And Megan, his daughter, is assuming that role tomorrow. So we're really excited about that. In fact, we had some celebration this morning honoring Brian, and we'll be doing a little bit more tonight. So just a really special family.
Oh, that's so special.
And incredibly dedicated. You mentioned, our culture, and we call it a business as unusual culture. We really work hard to connect relationally with our customers, with our employees, and also with our communities. And you guys have received a little bit of that training as well. But it's a really special deal.
It is, yeah, and it's unique in industry. It's unique at all, and it's certainly unique in industry that you put that relational level, that you relate to not just your customers but employees on that relational level, and you can feel it when you walk into the stores, and you can feel it obviously when you walk into the headquarters. And
Eric, one more thing. I was looking back just to see what the official start date of our business relationship was. And the best I can tell, it started March of 1999. So
really,
years we've been working together.
That's a minute. Yeah, that is a minute. So, yeah. So obviously, folks, we're real big about trying to use as many local businesses as possible, obviously, and couldn't find a better partner to go through all this with than another Texas-based, Texas headquartered, family-owned and operated company. Who've been a phenomenal vendor is just even the wrong word to use for it, but a phenomenal partner for us and serving you guys out there. And so what we do want to talk about is and I think you mentioned Brian, today's his last day as CEO. Is it 50 years? How long has he been?
He's served 50 years.
50 years. Yeah, I thought that's what the number was.
And he's just such a humble guy. Like, Eric, I know I told you this story. I met Brian years ago at the Extreme Makeover Build. And at that time, I was like the junior marketing person from the agency. And, I was standing there talking to Brian and he's like, so what do you do? So I was telling him, what I did and how excited I was to be there. And I was like, well, what do you do? He's like, I just work at McCoy's. Because he didn't want to tell me, he didn't want me to be intimidated by the fact that he was the CEO. So he's like, oh, you're doing great. Just go do your thing, little girl. Go have fun.
No, his whole DNA is service. That's his whole DNA.
Yeah, I can say with integrity, he's the finest man I've ever met.
Yeah, easily. Okay, so talk to us a little bit about maybe what a McCoy's customer looks like, because I think they're probably pretty similar to a Tilson customer, and walk us through that, and then we want to talk about, certainly get into the current supply chain struggles, but tell us a little bit about, y'all are in a much bigger footprint than we are. What do you see out there? Who's coming in and shopping at a McCoy's, and take it away?
Well, yeah, I think I'll start with what our business strategy is. Right, we serve three distinct customer groups. First and foremost, we serve the new construction customer, just like yourself, building new homes. We also serve a B2B, a business-to-business relationship. So that could be a lot of remodelers or trades. It could be painters, concrete guys, deck builders. It could be other businesses, schools, cities, states, universities. And then we also serve the retail customer. And traditionally, our most of our stores are about an 18,000 square foot retail sales floor. And depending on the store, we'll offer anywhere from 18,000 to 25,000 different products. And we're working really hard to remodel all those stores in the upcoming years. So
wow.
more to come there. But our traditional customer is what we call a born to build customer. Somebody that wants to try things on their own and do it themselves. We serve a lot of rural areas. Even in the major metros, like in Houston, we are kind of in the periphery. We're not in the actual city. Same thing for Austin, DFW, San Antonio. And then the majority of our stores, quite frankly, are in rural areas. So that's a really fun market to serve.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and it resonates well with, of course, our customers. And guys, if there's stuff that y'all are needing and you're needing on your farm and ranch that you're building as we speak, McCoy's the place to go grab it, because they're going to have the little odds and the better part about that is the associates in there speak the language. Okay,
That's
they're
right.
fluent in treated lumber and barbed wire and cattle panels and hog wire and fencing solutions, because the raccoons keep getting into your chicken tractor, and like these are things that they are absolutely fluent in. So that it's much different than walking into some other big box retailer and A, trying to find someone, and then B, trying to find someone who has any idea what you're actually struggling with out on your little 2-acre estate of Texas. So tell us what, obviously the big thing is supply chain, right? We're all feeling it. It's been going on. I think it's probably news at this point. It did not start in 2020. Apparently, there were some things that happened 10, 12, 14 years ago that set this into motion, but it was magnified a little bit, maybe magnified by COVID. So tell us a little bit about what y'all have seen. Obviously, we're 2 years into this now. What are some of the things, because you fly all over the country dealing with big suppliers, big lumber mills, big engineered wood production facilities. Tell us what you're seeing out there.
Well, I'll tell you, it's still a bit of a mess. Quite frankly, it did start back in 2008 when we had the last housing downturn. A lot of mills shuttered, were closed, specifically on the plywood side. So, that's had a compounded effect today, especially with engineered wood. Engineered wood happens to be an LVL, which is a primary beam to support your home. If you really like an open concept floor plan or large open garages, right, then you have to have these structural beams to support your home. Yeah. And those are really hard to get right now. And, in 2 stories with your I-joists. A primary reason for that is that laminated veneer beam is the veneer to make that beam is it's hard to get. And then of course there's a resin issue as well from all of the hurricanes and freezes we had a couple of years ago. But when plywood mills shut down, the veneer that's used for these beams is about 30% of a log core. So it's a structural part of that, and everything else can be used as byproducts for plywood. But there's a lack of need for that. So there's a real issue there today. On the engineered wood side, we have capacity in the U.S. for about I'm going to be a little liberal here. 1.5 million starts annualized. Well, last month's number was about 1.73. So you can see the deficit there of a couple 100,000 annualized starts. So it just can't keep up. Right. So one of the things we've been working incredibly hard for is to continue to build relationships with our vendors, because there's no new wood. You've just got to go find the stuff that's being produced and quite frankly, you just got to get a little more than your share.
Yeah, bully your way into getting more. Okay,
that's right.
All right.
Yeah. Well, nobody can bully like Texas boys can, so we're good.
Right. That's right. So LVLs would be one supply chain issue. We've been dealing with Windows. Windows continue to plague. I mean, the hardest thing on window orders is we'll place an order, with an expected lead time on Windows used to be 2 weeks. Then they got up to 12 weeks. And in the height of it, we're up to 23 weeks. I mean, you think about that for a second. It's like, oh my goodness, I got to order windows 6 months before I need them. In some cases, that's ordering before the slabs are poured.
Correct. Yeah.
Depending on the application of the building, which is a real problem. And then, of course, for the impact glass, it was over a year order time. So these were, and then you get an order time. You say, okay, well, I ordered it 13 weeks. That's what they said. And then the week before it's supposed to arrive that we committed to you guys, which y'all then committed to your customers, we get a notice that, oh, by the way, it didn't make the run this week.
It's not coming. Yeah. By the way,
it's on the dock. We forgot to put it on the truck because of labor shortages or whatever those things are. And it's just, it gets embarrassing, quite frankly, because we can't give accurate data to our customers, to you, so you can provide that to your customer.
And we hear you, Waylon. That's actually the biggest struggle right now for us. And of course, a lot of you folks watching, you feel this. Put your comments in. We understand that it's, this is supposed to be a fun experience, right? This is a unique, once in a lifetime, really a blessing. Like the American dreams, you get to buy a house somewhere, but if you get to build one, you pick where it's going to go and what it's going to look like and what's going to go in it. And maybe it's family land. There's a deeper emotional attachment there. It's supposed to be a wonderful experience. And the fact that we're, for the first time that I know of, and we aren't able to give someone an accurate expectation. And even when we do get one and give them to them, we, like you said, that was Monday, and by Friday, the story changes. And there's not a more frustrating thing, I know, for a customer, but you guys watching here have been fantastic about hanging in there. And we're doing all we can with bringing folks like Waylon on here to be as transparent as we can with you guys.
And I want to be, it's important at McCoy's that we have high integrity and deliver what we commit to. It's important. The Tilson family, it's very important that y'all have high integrity and deliver that for your customers.
Sure.
It's important for our vendors also. These are great people that we're working with.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it may be, they were depending on an order of glass to come in this week to make that order, and the glass truck didn't arrive. So there's all of these one-offs, or maybe it's the sash, or maybe it's the latches for the window. Something went awry, right? And it's just it's really whack-a-mole out there.
Yeah.
What issues are we going to deal with today?
Yeah, I described it yesterday to our sales team there in Central Texas. We're putting a finger in a dam here where it's leaking, and as soon as we do that, it squirts over here. We put one over there, and we fix that problem. Now it's squirting over here. But anyway, I know, Don, we've had a couple more comments roll in. Let's
do
hear from those folks. And y'all drop your comments into the comment section. We'll answer questions. We got some more we're going to talk about, but Waylon's got a lot of information for us, a lot of insight.
Yep, we got Sally saying the Gilbertsons are watching. They're building a Whitney D in Colorado County.
Welcome, Sally. Thank you.
We got John saying, hey, everybody, watching over on YouTube. We got Amy, who is waiting on a McCoy's delivery right now. The guys ran out of drain wrap.
That's Chris. I blame Chris.
We will find it. We will find it and get it to you. I promise.
Also share that she loves McCoy's, and that one of her favorite things is that even with the supply chain issues, they don't interfere with the quality of the products that come.
I think I feel pretty good to see.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then we've got Barbara, who is coming in from Sugar Land, building a Whitney D in San Marcos. What are the supply chain issues with Sheetrock? How long are the delays? Okay, what are we seeing with Sheetrock? Well,
that's been a hit and miss. Today, there's not a ton of delays on our end. It's one of those same things. It's depending on which manufacturer you're using. Is it domestic? Is it import? There's various reasons for some of the shortages out there.
Yeah, and some of the things on the sheetrock, be honest, and again, there's two issues at play here with all these things we're talking about. One is the actual supply side that and Waylon speaking to that. The other one is labor, and it is equally, if not more, of a struggle, because even if we can get the product, so let's say, for instance, on sheetrock, we may be able to get the product. Lumber's another one. We haven't had an issue getting lumber at all, thanks to McCoy's. We can get it. Sometimes it costs a whole bunch of money, but we can always get it because they're good about getting it. But in a lot of cases, and still right now, in a lot of pockets of the hyper active areas of Texas, it wouldn't matter if I get lumber out there tomorrow. I can't get a framer for 3 more months. Like that's the struggle in a lot of the areas is, and it's a whole industry thing. It's not a Tilson thing. It's not a McCoy's thing. There are not there's a massive shortage of skilled labor, and that goes back generations. Okay. That is not a problem that we're going to fix, in the coming months or even years. That goes back to, we were told for at least 2 or 3 generations, go to college. Get a degree, go get a job at a corporation, and you're off to the races. Okay. Don't work with your hands, whatever you do. Well, it turns out maybe that wasn't the best solution, globally speaking. But
Eric, to that point, you're not the only ones dealing with this either. Okay. I mean, I can just speak for other customers that we have. Many customers today are actually throttling back the starts every month, just to allow their order, what we would call an order file, their wait lists are significant. I mean, I've talked to one builder, they've got 14 months worth of homes backlog right now.
Right.
But they can only build so many houses a week or a month with the labor that's available. So that's not an uncommon situation that you're dealing with.
And so, Barbara, what we'll do in a lot of cases, to Waylon's point, is what we don't want to have happen is send material out there and have it sit. Because we have found in some cases material grows legs and walks away. It's the weirdest thing.
Strange.
And so sometimes we won't deliver maybe the lumber package or maybe the sheetrock package or maybe the cabinet package until it's ready to be, until we know we at least have someone on the schedule in the short term to come out and apply it. Because, and I'm not saying it gets stolen. That's not true. But the longer it sits there, the more inclined it is to get damaged. The more inclined it is to get it just, it's a job site, and it's not a good place to store stuff. So sometimes we just won't until we know we have a labor lined up to go hang it. Because the best place it needs to be is on your walls. So that sometimes, and we can get with your building superintendent directly and find out, kind of what that scheduling looks like. But that's a great. It's everywhere and everything, but some of it is actual material short, like Waylon's talking about with that engineered wood products. So that's it. You guys who like the big cathedral ceilings through and the big porch on the back, like on those sal, on the driftwood. That's the only way that happens. Is with that LVL supporting the load of that roof. Like you said, those 2 and 3 car garages, with the bonus room above or big open space, something's got to carry the load. And that's the kind of stuff that Waylon's flying from sea to shining sea so to make sure that their organization can procure that, so that customers like us can get it, so that customers like y'all can have it in your houses. And we're all after the same finite amount of resources, and that includes humans.
Yep, absolutely. Julie was sharing, reacting to kind of those window times that she hopes her windows were ordered, because holy moly, that's a long wait. And that's why we're doing some of that slotted schedule that you're hearing people talk about, that it's going to be this long until we get our builder, is that we have enough time to order all those materials to make sure they're arriving at the job site when we need them, and your home isn't sitting there not.
Yeah, we don't order the windows when the framers are framing walls. Like, they're ordered,
right.
And Waylon can speak. Yeah, we're sending them stuff.
Many of them are sitting in our warehouses right now.
Noted.
Already ready to go.
There's a subtle hint that we are taking up valuable real estate in the McCoy's real estate world. Understood. Message received.
But we'd rather them be there than not available when you need them, Eric.
Yeah, we're grateful for that. And what we're also seeing is some of the other, like more the off, like, so if you wanted different colored windows, like the black windows, for instance, those have been a different kind of struggle. And it's not just with windows, it's with all kinds of things. What we found is a lot of companies, and that's not just McCoy's or their suppliers, their vendors, they have a finite amount of assembly line space and time and shifts, workers. They're going to dedicate that to the 80%.
Most popular option. Yeah,
exactly. They have to. because that's what pays their bills and can pay for their employees and their benefits and health insurance and Social Security tax and all that stuff. So some of the things that are maybe more off, those things get pushed to the side or they get pushed back. Maybe we only do 2 runs of black windows a month instead of the 12 we used to do. So that's something that is to be considered as well. It's not they weren't ready for it. It's they're dedicating their assembly line time to what's truly in demand.
Okay. All right. And then we have Nikki, who was saying her windows were supposed to ship on the 25th, saying that she would like to get some more info. Nikki, if you could please send us a private message. We can't look up specific orders on this live, but if you send us a private message, we'll get with our team and try to figure if we can track down your windows for you.
Yeah, you're in Wise County, and I'll bet you we can track down between your building superintendent and our strategic accounts partners there at McCoy's. I bet you we can find out what's going on with the windows.
We'll find them. All right. John is sharing that he's nearing the insulation sheetrock phase. Hopefully, well, we will definitely get there.
Well, you're entering it. You're nearing it. Every day you get a little bit closer, John. I can tell you that.
A little bit closer. We've got Brandon. How long does it take to build a 2,500 square foot house?
Well, okay. I'll tell you how long it takes to build it. If we're actually out there, if it can work every day and get materials on time like we could 3 years ago, takes about 5 months. But that's not the case right now. So it still takes the same amount of time to build it. What's worked into the Gantt chart, into the schedule, is a lot of waiting. Mm-hmm. Waiting on trades, waiting on materials.
Waiting on inspectors.
Waiting on inspectors who are all backed up, waiting on appraisers who are backed up, waiting on surveyors who are backed up. So right now, I mean, we're actual construction time. We're telling people to be prepared for about 12 months of construction, which means a lot of that. So what I just told you means there's more time waiting than actually building. And that's just the reality right now. Fortunately, we don't require our customers to have a construction loan. So you don't have interest payments that you're making while that's happening and all that going on, which all of our competitors do. So it's happening and they're making payments while the house sits there and no progress is made. So we know it stinks to sit there and see nothing happen, but you need to prepare for at least 12 months of construction. That's after you have all the pre-construction work done, the engineering and the permitting and the geotechnical investigation and the color selections and all that kind of good stuff. So,
yep. All right.
Good question, Brad. Thanks for asking. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Linda and Robert, just thought I'd share that we got our framing package last week and your driver was great building a driftwood in Fredericksburg. So nice. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
We've got Lisa, hi from Fort Worth, building a rock wall at Possum Kingdom Lake. We've gotten approval from our ACC and are excited to get in line for construction. Shout out to Jody and Weatherford for keeping us on track. Now to hurry up and wait. Yes.
Welcome. Yeah.
Thanks,
we
appreciate your patience.
Yeah. It's a great attitude.
Susan is saying, I received an extra window. Will it be credited back to my account?
Well, good news, Susan. If you received an extra window, it probably means you weren't charged for the window. So what we do is, something this happens with lumber as well sometimes. You are entitled to everything that is on your plans. If it shows up to your job site and we use it on your house, it's yours. If it's not going to be used on the home and we're going to have it and we have it picked up to take to another job, it's Tilson's. So if we're using it on your house, it's yours. Now, that's not to say that, there may be a pile of brick or stone or something left over that ordinarily we would clean that up for you. We would have that removed. We have some customers that are like, nope, I want it left. I'm going to use it for a mailbox or a sidewalk or something later on. Communicate with your builder, with your superintendent, and let him or her know that's what you want to do. Because otherwise, our job is to clean up the job site and get that stuff off of there. But on things like that, windows, LVLs, those are things that either we can pick up, take to the job site, or sometimes we will call McCoy's and they will go out and pick it up. I know that they love to do that for us. They love going back out to the job and pick up material and take it back.
Oh, you lost Eric for a second. Oh, there he is. There you are.
I thought there was like an edit button that you pushed. And just...
No more Eric. Will is sharing that it's time for him to leave and abandon us. He wants us to have a great day, blessed week. Got some more posts to go set, hang some shade cloth for the chickens, ducks, turkeys, and pigs. Already got posts set up to build a lean-to type structure for the 3 cows and waiting on our belted Galway to have her calf. All right.
There's your farm and ranch report from Will Rhodes.
From Rhodes family. All right. Linda's saying we were told 14 to 18 months when we signed for Tilson. I think that is the complete process.
Dawn, what do you say?
So that probably was true when, well, it was true when you signed. What we're trying to do now that we see how long everything is kind of taking, we are starting to tell people longer time frames. We're saying 18 to 24 months now for the entire process, knowing that we're going to have that wait that everybody is referring to. After you do all your pre-construction, you do wait to be assigned a builder. So we are going by a slotted schedule, kind of what Waylon was describing earlier, of that we are waiting. We're only starting so many per month, so we can make sure that we have everything lined up. We can order your windows. We can make sure you have all your materials, so that hopefully once we go under construction, it will start to go quicker than what we have been seeing. And we don't have a house sitting there unfinished, because it's very frustrating when things stall out. So at this point, we're telling everybody, if you're starting today, it's 18 to 24 months. Linda, I would suggest you reach out to your sales consultant or your builder to kind of see where you are in the process and how much more time you could.
Because it is varying by location as well. It varies
Yes.
by, like, there are places that are booming more than others. Gillespie County is a struggle. Like, everybody and their dog wants to live in Fredericksburg, Texas. Who doesn't? Right? Yes. Everybody wants to live in Williamson County. Everybody wants to live in Burnett County.
Yeah.
But in fact, because everybody's moving into Austin, so all the people who liked Austin are like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm out of here. They're hitting the ejection button and they're going north. So some of those areas,
Tesla, bye.
Yeah, some of those areas are longer, and some areas are shorter. In Mahia, Texas, or Grimes County, Texas. Some of it, like, it's not, Sinton, Texas. I don't know what the general population growth in Sinton, Texas is right now, Waylon, but I think it probably has a little more bandwidth if we can find labor.
Absolutely. Jabo was asking if we can go over the inspection process a Tilson home goes through. What stages do they happen?
Yeah, I'll go pretty briefly, Jabo. And this is on an unincorporated area. This won't have anything to do with it. If you're in a city, there's a different set of rules. The city inspector or building inspector is going to have their own. But predominantly, before we place the concrete, it's going to be inspected. The engineer is going to go out there and make sure that we did the beams to the width and depth and cable spacing that they prescribed. So that happens prior to pour. And then once the house is framed and all of your electrical and plumbing and HVAC is roughed in, there's an inspection done there by a third-party licensed inspector. There's also an energy inspection done for your insulation. And then once the home is further down, closer to completion, there are a couple more energy inspections that happen. You got a duct blaster test, a blower door test, to test the tightness of the home and the tightness of the HVAC system. And then there's also a final building inspection done on all the systems of the home. It has to pass that. And none of this has anything to do with the appraiser comes out on behalf of the lender and verifies that we built what we said we're going to build. It's built to code, all that kind of good stuff. So in all areas of Texas, we build to those, and it's inspected by a third party. And they don't pass 100% of the time. We have to go back and rework stuff. And so we do. But now that's not universal among builders in Texas, I can tell you, because there is no building inspector in unincorporated Hays County, Texas. It's just not a thing. City of San Marcos, there is. You get outside the city limits, it's the Wild Wild West. Okay, and not every builder does that, but we do third-party license inspections on every single home that we build at minimum of those phases. Hope that helps.
Okay, awesome. We've got Martina, who is sharing she's building an Hidalgo and Avant. I know we are in the framing process. From what we have experienced, things are moving smoothly. Thank you for the information. Well, thank you.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Martina. Appreciate it.
And then we got Polly checking in and saying hi. Hey, Polly.
Hey, Polly. You're getting real close. So tell us a little bit, Waylon, and y'all keep asking your questions. We'll keep answering them. Waylon's like, oh, please don't ask some more questions. But, tell us a little bit about maybe kind of what we were talking a little bit about bandwidth. You gave me a stat yesterday about how many billions of board feet that's demanded in all North America, what we could actually do. Give us a little bit of that, and then maybe tell us and then we're going to talk about the big scary thing. The housing bubble is bursting. It's all slowing down. The Fed's poured cold water on it, and it's all coming to a stop. Prices are going to plummet, and all the lumber is going to be free. Tell us what you see.
Well, everything's supply and demand. Our entire economy is based on supply and demand. And, from our vantage point, and what I believe is accepted, is there's a significant undersupplied housing market based on what's needed. When you're dealing with, I'm gonna back up for just a second and talk about the lumber market first.
Mhm.
So you've seen these incredible spikes in lumber prices. We've seen volatility we've never seen before in the last 24 months. Up until 2020, the highest price we had ever seen on the lumber composite was about $600 per thousand. You know, in 2020, that in fact 2021 that ran up to $1,515 a thousand. Now that would have been 5 times what lumber prices would have been back in 2018. That's fivefold. A lot of that was caused by when the pandemic set in. A lot of the manufacturers, just like many businesses across the nation, started preparing for the worst.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
The sky was falling. No one knew what was going to happen. A lot of layoffs happened, and a lot of mills were shuttered, quite frankly. And then about 4 weeks later, everyone in America decided they wanted to redo their backyard and remodel their home. And the supply chain broke under that weight. So as there was not enough supply and there was an incredible amount of demand, prices escalated. There's nothing we can do that. As a retailer for us and as a builder, Tilson, we don't get to control the prices. You know, we have to pay a certain price, and then we have to try to stay in business and make a little bit on that price that we sell for, right? Because we want to continue to be contributors to the society and help with building structure and you know, helping people build their dreams. So that all happened. To give you an example, North America, you know, the capacity for North America is about 74 billion, what we would call board feet of production. Now, all the sawmills, all the logs being created is about 74 billion feet. North America's production capacity is, you know, about 40 billion. And we consume a lot more than that.
Yeah.
So we consume about 30% more than what we actually can produce. So we import a lot from Canada. That's where almost all of our imports come from. Well, with the tariffs, that increased prices. Yeah. And then all the other things, the labor forces with COVID, everybody staying home, and which was great for protection. There was just nobody to run those mills. So that's what created all this. And that rippled effect, not just lumber, but windows, doors, everything that's being manufactured, right? And then everything being imported from Long Beach and Los Angeles and Asia or into those areas. It just created this incredible ripple effect and imbalance of the supply chain. So that's where we have been. Today, I would think about a sine wave, right? You got a peak and a valley, and what you'd want on a great efficient supply chain is a straight line,
right?
Just constant, right?
Ideal, yeah.
Ideal, but that is not where we're at. We're still in a sine wave situation, and we will be for the next couple of years. Hopefully, those peaks and valleys are less, you know, as we move forward. But they're going to be there for a while.
Yeah. So volatility is what you're saying. Just expect
volatility is here to stay for a while. You know, but we all work hard to combat that. You know, at McCoy's, we have there's something called a buffer stock, right? We know what we anticipate to sell every month, so we order that. But we also have additional buffer stock set aside to take the highs out, and then we replenish it when the lows are in, and that works well. Unfortunately it takes capital to do that. You know, and we have to spend a lot more money on inventory to be prepared to serve our customers well.
Yeah, and it's the you know, the end consumer, obviously they get it's a sticker shock thing for them because they don't get to see what all led up to that, and it's, you know, I think there's more people follow the lumber market in the last 24 months than the history of the lumber commodity index. Right?
Yeah.
But again, that's one. I mean, it's a big piece, but that's one piece of this supply chain struggle that has nothing to do with windows, has nothing to do with, I see someone's asked about faucets, has nothing to do with shingles, has nothing to do with, and that's all supply side. We still talk about labor. You can fix all this supply chain stuff you want to and have that line evened out as much as you want. You still got to have humans to put it together.
You mean you just can't go grab somebody off the street and have them frame a house?
No, sir, you cannot. I mean, you can.
You could. You might not want to live in it.
You can. But yeah, that's very well said. I know we have a couple questions here, Don, and then I want to get to them talking about what's the future look like? What's the potential? Should we stop altogether? What's happening in the world? So.
All right. Well, Kathy is asking, like you said, our builder told us a couple months ago that he was having trouble getting in faucets. Is this the case? What items towards the last 2 months of construction might get back ordered today?
Well, luckily, Waylon has a crystal ball, can tell us exactly what's going to get back ordered come Monday. No, Kathy, that's a great question. And yeah, I mean, there have been faucets like everything else. And probably some component that goes somewhere in the brass valve in there that we're waiting on, that the that Delta is waiting on somewhere in some obscure manufacturing facility in Tennessee. And it's probably sitting on a container in New Orleans or Long Beach. Now that being said, okay, we've got some options, if we can't, and what we'll do if something like that does get discontinued or back ordered and it's going to hold up closing, we're going to get with you on a communication level, your builder is, and say, hey, look, we cannot get these faucets, or we can, but it's going to be 4 months. Here are our options. Here's this faucet, this faucet, this faucet. Which works best for you guys, so we can get these things in and move on down the road. And we've been saying that about appliances for a long time too. That was another thing that went just jerk on, because when everybody got stuck in their houses, they started like using their appliances actually, and next thing you know, they either wore them out or they hated them. And so everybody went out and bought new appliances, and then the same thing. So we're telling people like, hey, look, certainly you want to fall in love with the size and the features of it, but maybe not a specific model number. Maybe don't fall in love with a specific model number. And because these kinds of things are happening, and going back to what Waylon said, we don't know, to your last question, what items toward the last 2 months of construction might get back ordered. We don't know. That's the most frustrating and infuriating part, Kathy, is we until Monday rolls around and it's a whole nother set of whack-a-mole. And we hate that our customers are going through that, but we do know that we're going to do everything we can to deliver what we agreed to, and then if not, we have to get with you and like we can't just go willy-nilly and replace what we want. Like there's some things that we don't call out a brand. Like for instance, to Waylon's products, we tell folks in Climate Zone 2 we're going to use radiant barrier decking. Okay. It doesn't matter to us if it's LP Tech Shield, if it's Georgia Pacific Plitanium, if it's like we're using radiant barrier decking. Right. If we see something like that, we have some flexibility on what McCoy's can deliver to us. However, on something that you picked out, if you picked out a specific like tile with a color number or a plumbing fixture with a model number or appliance, like we have to get with you to change that. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. Is if it's something you signed off on your color selections, your options addendum, that is an actual model number or color batch number, even if it gets discontinued, we're going to come to you and say, hey, this is not available. Here are our other options. Yeah. So don't want you fretting about that. Hope give you some security on that.
Yes. All right. Marilyn is asking if it is unusual for a homeowner to ask to speak with the third-party inspector.
It's unusual, but it's not impossible. So we can certainly have that set up if you really wanted to. We could also get a copy of an inspection report. Your builder could get that, and if you had questions, we could certainly answer them. They don't typically come in contact with the homeowner, but not to say that they couldn't. I mean, it's only because we figured it's one less person you really want to end up talking to. But yeah, you can do that.
Well, and we're trying to get on their schedule whenever we can, so it's one less person to kind of coordinate.
Right. Yeah, it is difficult to say, hey, this date, this time, do this. That's really a struggle because they may be 3 weeks, 4 weeks, some of them 6 weeks scheduled out. So we certainly don't want to have one sitting that long waiting. But not to say that we couldn't have a conversation with them. Of course, Marilyn. Great question.
Okay. All righty.
All right. So, Waylon, interest rates are up. Everybody's going to stop building houses all of a sudden, right? I mean, this is all tell us a little bit about what y'all see, because you are in y'all in 4 states that you operate in, Texas predominantly. So let's speak to Texas. What are y'all seeing? What's McCoy's see that's going to happen in Texas?
Well, I'm gonna quote a few numbers from the latest Texas Housing Insight report from the Texas Real Estate Research Center for Texas A&M. Here's
Very reputable place.
Very reputable. Here's a few things we know. Months of inventory in Texas is 1.4 months. That's available homes for sale. Okay. Housing sales, this would have been from their January report, which would have been a little all the interest rate changes, but housing sales were up 8.2%. The average day on the market for a home is 33 days.
Average.
Okay. So the other thing, let's expand a little more macro and look at the U.S. There's a 760,000 available homes for sale in the U.S. If we back up to 2008, when the last housing bubble happened, there were over 2.6 million homes for sale.
So almost 4 times.
Almost 4 times. The other big factor here is the primary age group for folks to enter the housing market is 29 to 34. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
In 2008, with the highest level of home inventory ever recorded, we had the smallest population group of that age group in decades entering the market. So you had oversupply, under demand. That created this. Plus the lending requirements were really whack. Okay, they were out there.
A little loosey goosey. Yeah.
Today we have on that same age group, we have the largest population group, and through polls, 54% of them said they're going to build a house in the next 5 years, and about 43% in the next 3 years. That's the largest population group ever recorded in that age group,
mm-hmm.
with the smallest inventory on the ground to sell since the 80s, early 80s. So I don't know how you get any other way than, there is a housing shortage. People will argue it's between 1 million and 4 million. I believe it's closer to 4 million.
Yeah.
And if we build about 1.1 million homes max a year, and then you got teardowns in the middle of that, this is a 7-year run to get this fixed.
Yeah, and because we spoke earlier that you got people that aren't moving out of their houses as much, or they aren't selling them because people they can Airbnb it, they can VRBO it. We've got baby boomers who, we spoke historically, they would kind of move in with family or move into an assisted living facility or move into a nursing home as they got even older. And now they're aging in place. Like they're doing things to their homes to make sure that they can stay there. So those homes aren't coming on the market for sale. So, and like you said, the millennials are the largest population generation wise that we've had in 3 generations. Ever. Yeah, for sure. Ever. And they all want to buy houses.
That's right.
And as an industry, we didn't build anything from 2008 to like 2018, 2019. Like we effectively built almost nothing because the industry was so burned from the Great Recession that they just didn't want to play that game anymore.
Yeah, and you want to think about also the, how attractive is Texas for the rest of it, because there will be things happen, and Texas is usually the last one impacted. So if you looked at the relo buyers, where they moved to, number 1 place for relocation in the United States was Austin, 5 of the last 6 years. And that 1 year they were number 2.
Wow.
Okay, San Antonio also made that list all 6 years.
Yeah.
So that's major cities relocation anywhere in the U.S. And the reason is, while it's still, we would all argue, man, it costs a lot today to live. And in 2019, it cost 70, let me get the number right here, but 72% less to live in Austin than it did San Francisco. Even with the housing appreciation and all the other things, inflation that's in place, the latest number from last month is it's still 61% less to live in Austin, which is the highest priced place to live, arguably, in the state of Texas.
Yeah, by far. Yeah, it's by far. It's not even close. Yeah.
Than San Francisco. So there's still a lot to happen. You know, we don't have a state income tax. It's a beautiful place to live. The cost of living's lower. Business.
A lot of companies moving.
Labor is available. Lower cost labor is available. It's just we've just got a long runway ahead of us. We will see some bumps in the road. You'll see different things. People get scared, but the numbers don't lie.
Yeah, it's not ending, and we will be the last ones at the party. Like, it will start on the coasts, like it always does. But to Waylon's point, they're all moving. Like, Texas is very unique in that so many people have moved in, so many companies have moved here, which moves employees here that we were at a deficit before they ever got here, and we are at a far more significant deficit now, and catching up. I mean, all that was before Tesla decided to move here, and you know,
Samsung
Google
and
relocated.
Taylor and all the other folks. Yeah.
So great points. Don, I see we got a couple other questions popping up, and guys, we're going to give you kind of about a 5-minute warning because I know Waylon's got a big company to run. But ask us some more questions. We're going to get all your questions.
All right. Jennifer's asking, how long do you wait on a back-ordered item before changing to something available?
Well, there's not a hard cast rule, Jennifer. We're going to work closely with a vendor to find out, hey, is it really here? We know the questions to ask now. Like, when you say it's in stock, what does that mean? Does it mean it's on a container ship? Does it mean it's at a port waiting to get brought in here? Does it mean it's at your warehouse? Does it mean that your plumber has it on his truck? Like, these are very different things. So we have a conversation and find out what the reality of it is. And then if it's something that we see is going to hold us up from getting you in that home, we're going to make a telephone call and we're going to make a game time decision. That's how that's handled. It's case by case, but we know the questions to ask now after 2 years of this.
When they say it's back ordered, we're like, do you have a date that you expect to resume production? And like, how sure are you that it's really a back order and not a discontinuation? And,
correct.
Things like that.
Great question.
All right. We got a friend from YouTube saying his roof's going on today. Thanks to see the progress. Thanks to see the progress. San Gabriel and Hunt. Awesome.
Wonderful.
Jabo is asking, generally with today's delays, at what stage of the build do you recommend we buy the appliances we are responsible for? The refrigerator, washer, dryer.
Yeah, great news. You actually don't have to have those things to close and take possession of your home. So worst case scenario, they come in. Now, you know, with those things, I wouldn't go get anything that's special order personally. If it were me, if it were something that if I was going to be asking my wife to move in and we needed a refrigerator, washer, and dryer, I don't want her waiting on anything. I want it when we move in, it's ready to go. So those are things that you can get your hand, again, as long as you're not, if you've gone, 6 pages deep on customizing one at LG.com, that might be tough to procure. But if you can find one at a facility, a retail facility that you can get your hands on them, then do that. But the overarching thing is you don't have to have those things in to physically close at the title company on your home. But I wouldn't make mama wait too long.
Yeah, I would say take that question to the retailer that you're planning to buy them from and ask about the specific one that you're looking at. They can give you a much better timeline on this is how long it takes us to get that, because I'm seeing a lot that just because it's on the showroom floor doesn't mean it's actually in the back room. And M is saying, I've heard that people and or companies in other countries are also buying up property in the U.S., usually sight unseen, and wildly outbidding, offering above asking price. How true is this, and how much of an impact is it possibly having?
It's true. It's true enough where some legislatures in some states have actually outlawed it, particularly when it comes to farmland. I know Indiana did it. I think Iowa did it as well, where they outlawed foreign countries coming in and buying up farmland. That's a strategic asset. Okay. But I mean, it drives the price up. It's supply and demand, like Waylon said. So yes, it's having an effect. I mean, there's not enough stuff to go around, and it's one of those things when you see the stock market being as volatile as it is, and interest rates still really low. They really are low. I don't care what you're hearing. They're still really, historically speaking, they're very low. And you can prove that by going and asking your bank what your savings account is yielding right now. It's still very low. And so the point I'm making is, if you don't want your money in the stock market and you don't want your money in cash sitting in a savings account yielding 0.01%, where else might you put money if you have some money? That historically has yielded a pretty okay return. It's real estate. And so that's what you're seeing investors in other areas of the US and other countries do is, hey, I'm not real keen on what's going to happen in, maybe India or China or Russia or the Ukraine or whatever. But I know historically in the United States and in Texas, it's going to go up in value. So that's what you're seeing. It's a result of that. Great question.
Yeah. Jay is asking, do you guys forecast prices to continue to increase? Had to put building on hold due to high cost interest rates.
Okay, Waylon, you take it first, and then I'll answer it for Tilson. What do you see?
Well, I can tell you on the products that we sell, which would be pretty much commodities, windows, doors, you're not going to see any decreases on windows, doors, roofing, things like that. The thing that is volatile are your what we call your dimensional boards, your lumber, your plywood, those types of things. And that's going to be that peak valley, like I was talking about earlier. I think today we are entering into a lower valley point. I mean, futures on lumber's around $700, a little less than that actually as of this morning, compared to the $1,400 or $1,200 we were 3 months ago. We can't control that, and I would anticipate that to bounce back a little bit, unfortunately. But I think we are in a much better place today, and than we have been. So there will be some relief there. Now that's just a portion of the home. Labor is going up, and Eric can speak to the rest, but it's a small portion actually.
Right. So Jay, it's a great question, and here's what I'd say: you pull up any graph you want to over the last 5, 10, 20, 30, 50 years, and look at home prices. They're not going to go down. And I'm not speaking directly. Just think globally, economically speaking, what it would mean if we want real estate prices to go down. Like what you're really asking for in that situation. You're asking for a gigantic economic problem. You really don't want wealth, because it's not just real estate. Okay, it's your 401k, it's the stock market, it's your pension plan, it's your retirement accounts, your all of it has to go down. So we don't want that. Okay. Now, that being said, we don't see prices going down. Labor, there's still no more labor than there was a year ago in Texas to build these things. And there's just as many, if not more, homes on the backlog or on demand, people still moving in here. So labor is not in, and I know Waylon mentioned a lot of things like the expensive components, windows, doors, cabinets is another one. Like, those are things that are not going to come down ever again. And the labor to put them in, that's not going to come down because there aren't more of them. And even when those things start to normalize, here's what we saw before, if things start to normalize, and let's say housing does go down like it did in the recession, it's not gonna, but let's say that it does. What ends up happening is a lot of those hands leave the market. They're not framers anymore. They'll go get a CDL and drive a truck. Okay. They go into the oil field. They move back to their home country in a lot of cases and go make a living there. So when it drops, the number of hands drop. And so the price doesn't end up really dropping because you still have less people doing it. That's the struggle we've seen over, 9 decades of doing this. And so it's not something. Now, what it typically will affect, Jay, is maybe what all people buy. Maybe we don't do the big 3-car garage and every single custom option on the plan, and maybe we don't do wall-to-wall wood floors. Maybe those aren't things that we end up putting into our initial price of the home. Maybe there's stuff that we can go back to McCoy's here in 8 or 10 years. Hey, you know what? We'll do the big deck later. We'll put that deck in later. Let's not finance that for 30 years. Let's go put that in at another time. And that's the decisions that we see people make when rates start to creep up like they have, is like, hey, you know what? Maybe we don't do every single upgrade in the color room and put it in there. That's what we see happen. So that's what I'd encourage you to take a look at if you're considering doing it, because the odds of real estate prices going down in Texas is not good.
Yeah. I've said before, I expect the rate of increase to slow down a little bit. I don't expect prices to go up as quickly, but I do see prices will continue to go up, just hopefully not as quickly as they have been and as frequently.
The last report I've seen on that, 18% this year or in the last 12 months increase, right? That's what we're dealing with here. And what I never saw any forecast that went negative. Okay, the only time housing has ever went negative was in 2006 to 2008.
Yep.
But what the forecast for the economists that I watch, it's taken it down to a 3% or 4% annualized increase rather than the 18 over the next 3 to 4 years. So it's not going to come down from where it's at. And to your point, it's just not going to appreciate as fast.
Yeah, that's well said. And you're not, and going back to your 06 to 08, just so we're not putting any kind of false sense of hope in anyone's head.
Yeah.
What went down in value was homes that were sitting on the ground, inventory.
Right.
Guess what? There isn't any of right now.
That's right.
That's not a thing. So that's not going to happen. There's your answer, Jay. So we'll do a last call of questions. So if you got any more questions, type them in now, and then we're gonna let our folks. Y'all need to go back to work, of course, and we'll get back to normal life here. I think I got one more question, Dawn.
Yep, we got one more. Barbara's asking if we're hiring construction managers, builders to keep up with the housing demand.
Yes, we are. But that takes training. Also, you can't just take somebody, throw them in a truck, and have them go start building houses. So there's an on-ramp time, training to do that, even if they come. And here's one last thing I'll say about it. So bringing on builders is one component of it. We still got to find trades.
Right.
Adding a building superintendent, putting them in a truck and putting them on a route helps in some way, maybe with oversight. But if they don't have a Rolodex of framers and roofers and sheetrockers and trim carpenters and paint guys, then that's the other part of the problem that we're working very hard to solve, is trying to bring on and train and vet new contractors. So hope that answers the question. So,
yep.
Okay. Waylon, thank you, friend. I appreciate you doing this very much. Thank you for your insight, your wisdom. Thank you for the partnership with McCoy's. Y'all's support of our organization is it's humbling, and it's fun to watch y'all. Y'all have a wonderful legacy, a wonderful culture. Folks, I'm not making here. If you're going to go buy something, buy from McCoy's. That's it. That's all I'm going to tell you. I'm not asking you. I'm telling you. So do that.
I would appreciate that.
Support Texas families. Support Texas businesses. Dawn, thanks for putting this on. I appreciate
Absolutely.
you. Week in and week out, you put on fantastic content, and we're grateful for it. Folks, thank you all for watching. We're so grateful that you're out there, that you're bearing with us. To our prospects, our customers, ones that are in the pre-construction part, ones that are under construction, ones that have closed. We're grateful for you. Thank you for supporting our company, our little family. You supporting the McCoy's family and thousands of other vendors and trade partners and all that stuff. This is how we keep these things rolling. So thank you all so much for doing this. Dawn, where can they find us? Because it doesn't have to end here, folks. It doesn't have to end here. Where else can you engage with us?
You can find us everywhere. We have a website that is open 24/7. You can submit a contact form and talk to any of our new home specialists. They were watching along with you today, so you guys can continue the conversation there. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us right here on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're watching from right now. Or you can find us at one of our locations throughout the state. They are also open 7 days a week. So reach out to our new home specialist, make an appointment, go tour some models, and have a great time.
All right, folks. Well, thank you all so very much. And we hope to soon make you part of the Tilson family. We will see all of y'all later. Thanks.
Bye, everybody.